I'm rusty too. Welcome. We had a start and stop. Andrew Howard's back. Welcome back to Fight Night UFC. Very sorry for the folks that joined us about 10 minutes ago. We had a sudden start and stop. Got a little bit of a power flicker. Please be patient with us. Andrew had gave us a great backdrop to the fight, but Andrew, it was so good. I want to hear it again.
Okay. All right, cool, man. We'll go through it again. Anyway, we're just going through the top third of the card, just recapping UFC 266, just doing a reaction show as opposed to our normal preview show. So we'll keep it a little bit short tonight. Just going over the top three fights, which were all amazing. First of all, the one fight that a lot of people ordered the fight for that maybe didn't care so much about the main event. A lot of old school guys really love this one. Was the Nick Diaz-Robbie Lawler rematch. Of course, their first match was in 2004, going all the way back to the Zuffa days of UFC. In that fight, Nick was an up-and-comer. Robbie was pretty well established, and they thought this was just another walkover fight for him. Nick ends up doing the famous Stockton slap, saying a lot of nice words to him in the octagon, which kind of got Robbie a little flustered, and Nick gets the second-round KO in that one. Fast forward 17 years later, we've got a rematch. We haven't seen Nick in 6 years, but Nick and Nate are just phenomenal as far as their fan support. People love these guys. They are superstars. They move the needle. People will pay, any card you got. If you've got a Diaz brother on there, whether you love them or hate them, people will pay to watch these guys fight, and for good reason. I mean, they bring it each one of their fights. You're not going to really see a boring Diaz fight one way or another. They use a lot of pressure, boxing, a lot of volume. They've got world-class jiu-jitsu, both of these guys, both brothers. I love watching Nate Diaz's triangles, and he's got some really cool guillotines. Nick has had some awesome arm bars over the years. So just a little background on those guys. Nick, it'd been a while, so people were excited to see him back. And Robbie Lawler, he's a fan favorite too, man. He brings it every time. So there was a little bit of intrigue going into this because about 3 days out, this was supposed to be a welterweight fight. Nick almost always fights at welterweight. So does Robbie. And a few days out, Nick had requested it to be moved to middleweight. Props to Robbie for accepting that, because most of the time, if you can't make weight, your opponent gets a pretty good portion of your purse in that fight. So they moved it to middleweight, which kind of concerned me a little bit because, I knew something was up if he couldn't make weight. And I wondered if Nick's heart was into this fight or not. But I got to say, it was very, very entertaining. A lot of fun to watch. I mean, they might have called this kind of the senior tour of the older guys, but they came out swinging. The first round, ton of volume from Nick. I would probably give the first round to Nick. Like I said, he uses a ton of volume in his boxing. I was curious to see if we'd see some grappling, because I would definitely give the edge to Nick on that, but they kept it standing. And I would give the first round to Nick. Ton of punches thrown. He came out throwing the spinning kick to begin with. Like he came out firing. Robbie settled in the second round, landed a lot of good shots. And then the third round, of course, Robbie gets the TKO. Really good shot to the nose, clipped Nick, knocks him over, or knocks him down, excuse me. Nick's on the ground. Robbie motions for him to get up because he thought Nick was maybe just enticing him to come in his guard and play jiu-jitsu. And Nick couldn't respond. He couldn't get back up. I mean, his nose was just busted completely up, and that was it. It was a great fight. Nick looked better than I thought he would look, but I thought Robbie would probably get that one, especially when they had to move weight divisions. But I enjoyed it, man. I think there's still a pretty good amount of fun fights that could be out there for Robbie. I don't think he's probably in title contention because welterweight right now is a murderer's row. You got Kamaru Usman, the champ, who I think is the pound-for-pound best fighter currently in the world. You've got Colby Covington, who's going to be fighting him in November. Absolute cardio machine. He's already beaten Robbie Lawler before, by the way. Ton of volume in his punches. Great wrestling. One of the best wrestlers out there. Of course, you got Leon Edwards on an absolute tear right now. You got Gilbert Burns, who's looked great other than losing to Usman, last year. And Jorge Masvidal's still out there. You know, even though he lost his last two title fights, he's still always a contender. So I don't think Robbie will probably go against one of those guys, but I think like an intriguing matchup could be Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Michael Chisea. He's up there. Plenty of options for Robbie still if he wants to continue. If he wanted to go out and retire after that fight, then more props to him, man, because he looked great. And I can't think of a better way to end my career than avenging one of your losses earlier in your career and going out like that. And tons of class by both those guys, by the way. They shook hands, they hugged. You know, the first fight, there was a lot of trash talk. Of course, both guys were younger back then. That was quite a while back. As far as Nick, it's tough to say if there's any options out there for him. It would have to be almost like a hand-picked match for him. Chael Sonnen was talking about Damian Maia, but I don't think Dana White wants Damian Maia back in the octagon. He just didn't look real good in his last fight. And Brett Okamoto from ESPN was recommending Ben Askren, but I think Askren's probably retired at this point. And another thing is, I mean, Nick, at this point, it's about legacy, and I don't think either one of those fights adds to his legacy. So unless he absolutely wants another fight, I don't know, man. Maybe he just hangs it up. He looked like he was tired, and he might have did that fight out of necessity. But who knows? I mean, I'm not, training with him and stuff, so I couldn't tell you. But his days are definitely behind him. So,
one quick question I did want to ask you, and we didn't cover this earlier, but I had wrote this down. Does the Diaz brothers, do they have a strange place in the sport to promote the sport now? Or can they be the face that Peyton Manning, Eli doing Monday Night Football? They're immensely popular.
They are very popular, but I will say one thing: they hate doing any kind of press or media or stuff. They even admit they're very socially awkward when it comes to doing interviews and things like that.
They smoke weed though.
Yeah, they love smoking weed. Nate did an interview with, I think it was Ariel Helwani, and it was a little awkward. He got up at one point in the middle of it, just unannounced. I think he went to the bathroom. I think he went and lit a joint at one point. It was different. And that's nothing against those guys, man. They just don't like dealing with the media. That's not their favorite thing to do.
But is there a role that they could fill?
Well, they own a school out in Stockton, and they coach jiu-jitsu, even the kids and adults and things, and they help train fighters. So I think they would be excellent coaches for, any up-and-coming fighter that's really wanting to get a really good jiu-jitsu and boxing background, and those guys are tough as nails. I think that would be their role in MMA. I don't think Nate's done. Nate's probably still got a couple more fights in him, I think. But I could see Nick as a coach, because he could kind of stay back in the shadows and not have to deal with the media and interviews and things that he just really doesn't like. He's a people person as far as not doing interviews or media obligations. But anybody I've talked to, and I've had friends that have met the Diaz brothers, said they're actually very nice people out of the octagon and very easy to deal with. So I could see Nick being a great coach.
All right. Well, that was almost a throwback fight to me. It did seem like 2004 in a way. So let's move on up to a little farther up the card. And as I said, we're leaning heavily on you. What fight do you want to talk about next?
Let's go to the ladies. Your woman crush, Valentina Bullet Shevchenko.
The hottest fighter in the world, Valentina.
Yeah.
Now
Valentina, the hottest woman in the world, the Bullet, against Lauren Murphy.
Pretty much could break your face.
Yeah. It pretty much went exactly the way everybody thought it would. And this isn't a knock on Lauren Murphy. She's a great fighter in her own right. But, Valentina's here. Everybody else is down here. She's just far and away better than anybody. She reminds me, and I know I'm so biased, but she's like a female George St. Pierre because she's just good at everything. I can't really find a weakness in her. And, the thing is, like, if she's fighting a grappler, she's going to outstrike him. If she's fighting somebody that's really talented at striking, she can take their weakness and take them down. But even then, she's got to be the best striker in her division for sure. I was really impressed with her grappling the past 2 fights that she's had. She's come out there and just dominated in the clinch. She's got a great body fold takedown, which she was just doing at will against Lauren Murphy. And she also did it against Andrade in their last fight. She is an excellent grappler as well. And everybody gets excited about her head kicks, which rightfully so, they should, and her beautiful Muay Thai. But she can wrestle, man. And she's got some great takedowns. And she's really nasty at getting people in like this crucifix position and just landing elbows and just no mercy. She is getting better is the scary thing. I think she's getting better with each fight. I think she's getting even more well-rounded. She's fought since she was a little girl. You know, her mom's a champion. I mean, it's in her blood, man. And she's just cleaning this division out. But the thing is, I don't mind seeing her clean the division out because it's just greatness. And I love watching. I'm just in awe of watching her fight, to be honest. I'm a fanboy. She's amazing, man. It's fun to watch. It really is. Even if it's a one-sided fight like it was. Now it went 4 rounds, so Lauren Murphy hung in there for a little bit, but it was all one-sided the whole time. I mean, she is just so darn good at everything she does.
All right, I got a 2-parter I want to throw at you. One, is she clearly the second best fighter in the UFC history at the female division? And 2, obviously Emmanuel Nunes would be number 1. Tell me why we should get excited for the third fight of the trilogy.
Yeah, it's fair to say she's number 2 because you got to give respect to Amanda Nunes. She has won twice already. She does have 2 victories over Valentina, although one of them was very close with a split decision. But 2-0 means, you know, you got to give the props to Amanda. And Amanda's the GOAT until dethroned. I do think Valentina's getting better, and that would be a super fight. That could headline any card. That would sell a ton, you know. And I'm not big on trilogies if somebody's down 0-2. Normally, you only get a trilogy if it's a rubber match, and you got to, you know, they're 1-1, and you got to determine the best out of 3. But both fighters are cleaning both their divisions out. I mean, Amanda's killing it in bantamweight and featherweight. She's a champ. Most of the time, you don't see people as a champ because you can't fight in both divisions and be active enough to keep the belt in both divisions. But Dana's let her keep it because she's killing it, and she's just run through it, and she stays active in both divisions. But I would like to see Valentina move up and do it, man. I think it'd be awesome. You know, I can't blame Bullet if she just wants to stick where she's at and, you know, rock it out and flyweight and keep going. But that'd be a ton of money in a super fight. But we'll see how it goes. She may just want to stay where she's at. And Dana knows he's got 2 superstars right now, and he may let them have a couple more fights before they get into it. But at the same time, you also run the risk of one of them possibly losing, which I don't see it happening anytime soon. But if one of them did lose, then, of course, you killed your super fight there. And the longer you delay a potential super fight, then, you know, the more likely it is it's not going to happen. Look at like Anderson Silva GSP. That was the dream match for so long, you know, throughout the mid to late, you know, like 2005 to 2010. Everybody wanted to see that. And then it just got delayed and it just never happened. So it's a question of, do you just want to keep throwing sacrificial lambs and letting them win fights and dominate, or do you want to set up the super fight and see what happens? Which this would be like the only time you've seen a super fight when somebody's down 0-2, but it's just because Valentina's getting so much better. But props to Amanda as well. It's not like she's looking sluggish at all. She's looked amazing in every one of her fights as well. So
here's the $1 billion question for you, buddy. Came in off the internet. If somebody else wouldn't answer it, I would have. All right, I'm going to throw you on the big screen. Because I want your facial reaction.
Yeah.
Are both of these women clearly better than Ronda Rousey at the top of her career?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, for sure, man. I mean, well, for one thing, Nunes is the one who put Ronda into retirement. You know, she beat her in less than a minute. That was Ronda's last fight. It was in 2016. I think it was like New Year's Eve. And Ronda just, she had nothing for her in that fight. So if Ronda ever wanted to argue that she was better, then clearly Amanda won that fight in 46 seconds. She TKO'd her on the feet, or like, ref come in and stopped it because she was just getting tagged. She had nothing for her, at all. And that's not me trying to disrespect Ronda. It's just that Amanda's just so daggum good, dude, that you couldn't put Ronda above these women. Props to Ronda for being a pioneer. She paved the way for women, and you can never take that away from Ronda, whether you like her or not. And a lot of people, she's very polarizing because a lot of people didn't like her. I personally didn't like her attitude and stuff and the way she handles herself after she, first lost her title against Holly Holm, when she was going on the tour and talking a lot of trash, and then she threw a towel over her head and ran out of the arena, wouldn't talk to anybody, wouldn't do any media leading up to the Amanda Nunes fight, loses that, and then she disappears again. And then from what I heard, people in WWE couldn't stand her either after she had a run in that. So
very, very bad feelings there.
Yeah.
Very bad feelings.
But with that being said, however you feel about her, she was a pioneer. But as far as skill level and being well-rounded, she's not close to either one of these girls. These girls are amazing. I mean, they're top of their game.
Is this fight big enough to headline one of the biggest shows without do you need a strong co-main with it, or is there enough there just to get the buys with them too?
I think that it could headline even by itself, just because you've got a super fight here, plus you've got two ladies at the top of their game, which is cool, for everybody out there, even young girls that are starting in martial arts that want to aspire to be, like these ladies. That could headline. Now, obviously, anytime you got a good co-main, you can stack the card. That's always a good thing. But I'd order the fight, even if it was hardly anything on the undercard besides this fight. I think it's strong enough to hold itself. Even if you were scheduling it for, like, UFC always has really big fights around 4th of July because that's International Fight Week, Memorial Day weekend, and around New Year's, and usually around the Super Bowl as well, because there's a lot going on in Vegas with gambling for the Super Bowl. So I was there for one of the fights around Super Bowl weekend, and it was insane. So pretty good time. But yeah, I think it could headline anywhere, man, for real.
All right, Andrew, I do want to get to the main event, and what I did see of the main event, it was brutal in the nature. I was reading you an excerpt from Sporting News that called it vengeful violence. So was it as violent as I perceive it and as the media perceives it?
Yeah, that thing. As soon as the fight was over, there was a ton of fighters in the UFC, other people involved, saying, "Man, we got a fight of the year candidate right here." It was amazing. Volkanovski looked great, and if a lot of people for some reason don't really buy into him, and it's possibly because a lot of people argue he lost the second Max Holloway fight, which I could go off on a tangent about that, but give him his credit. I think this might have been his coming out party, even though, he should deserve respect way before this. The guy's an amazing fighter, but watching how he just handled himself and just brutalized Ortega's face. It was rough to look at Brian Ortega during the fight and in between rounds. His face was absolutely puffed up under his eyes. He looked almost like an alien at one point. And I'm not saying that trying to make jokes or be funny. It was uncomfortable to look at his face. When they were shining the flashlight in his eyes, he was kind of staring off into space. And, he had a pretty rough fight like this when he fought Max Holloway, and they had to stop it in between rounds because Max was just tagging him the whole fight. Fights like this take years off your life, honestly, and they for sure take years off your career. So it was tough watching it. But at the same time, props to Ortega because, God, he's so tough. And at the same time, he wasn't just a punching bag because in the third round, I thought he was about to finish the fight himself. It was a nasty submission he had. He had a mounted guillotine on top of Volkanovski. He locked his legs in what's called a grapevine position. So Volkanovski really it had his legs shut down. He couldn't do much but squirm a little bit. He wrapped the neck. Volkanovski was gurgling. Like Ortega said, I could hear him choking like he was about to go out, and Volk would not tap out. He just wasn't. He's a champ. These guys are tougher than nails, obviously. And somehow he slipped his head out, which is insane because Ortega is a high-level black belt. He's a prodigy under Henry Gracie. They call him T-City for a reason because it's Triangle City. And speaking of which, even after Volk got out of that guillotine attempt, when they were scrambling a little bit about a minute later, he locks in a pretty deep triangle. Probably not as deep as the guillotine attempt, but that triangle was legit deep, and Volk got out of that as well, which was insane because if you'd have told me before the fight that Ortega's got a guillotine locked from mount with a grapevine in the legs, and then he also locks in a triangle, I'd be like, Ortega's getting one of those. That guy's a submission machine. And maybe chalk it up to it was in the third round, and they were pretty slippery by that point. You're sweating. If that might have been in the first round before they were sweating all over the place and really slippery, maybe Ortega gets that submission, but he was so close. So I wasn't biased in any way in this fight. I just wanted to see a good fight, but my heart breaks a little bit for Ortega being that close to being a world champ. And I like him, obviously, being a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu guy. But props to Volk, man. He brought it. And after he got out of both those submission attempts, he got down and did some ground and pound inside Ortega's guard and almost finished the fight in that third round. So they might have been able to stop this fight in between maybe like round 3 and 4, but they kept it going. But props to Ortega for, keeping it going. He's still young enough to where I could see him getting a title shot again. Most of the time, if you've had 2 title shots, it's tough to get back up there for a third. But I could see him climbing back up there. But anyway, amazing fight, though. Anyway, yeah, Volkanovski got it unanimous decision. I guess I should have clarified that. But he did win a unanimous decision afterward. And great fight, though. Awesome.
So why does the Ultimate Fighter lead to such violent, unfriendly fights? Does that environment really? I mean, these guys were both coaches on the Ultimate Fighter. What?
Yeah.
Is it? Does that show? Do they match the coaches ahead of time and went, it's going to be a great fight. We'll let them get in here and fight, coach.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it too is for camera, and they're going to know that. They're going to talk a little bit of trash to each other. They're not going to have coaches that are gentlemen to each other. They want good television also, but at the same time, they want a good fight, and they knew they were going to get it with these guys. And I think when you're coaching against somebody, even though you're talking a lot of trash for the camera, at the same time, that person's probably going to get on your nerves at some point, even if you're cool. When the camera's not rolling, you're competing and you're coaching these guys and you're trying to beat the other team as well as you got a fight to look forward to against that guy. So you're going to really get on each other's nerves at some point. So I think it adds a little extra intrigue to it. If you ever go back and watch the Rashad Evans Rampage Jackson season when they were coaches against each other, they couldn't stand each other for a little bit. And Rampage literally busted a door. Like he put his fist through a door, kicked it. And I mean, the thing was just splinters when he was done with it. And they really went at it, a lot of trash talk. They were, legit hating on each other going in that fight, which is funny because they're cool now. There's a video of like Rampage prank calling them and they were laughing about it. So I guess, sometimes rivalries die down and people are cool again, but it's a good point, man. I think when you're coaching against somebody, it adds a little extra spice to it and you're ready to get in the cage and work them over a little bit, a little bit more than maybe you would have wanted.
That the year of Chael Sonnen and the Axe Murderer.
Wanderlei. Yeah, they had to cut it short because he attacked him on hit. That was real.
I mean, that was nuts.
Yeah, that's where the famous line where Chael is talking to him, and Chael's got a persona. He loves WWF and he acts WWF. And Chael goes, buddy, you got to chill out. I can't let you get close. He said, I can't let you get close because he knew that Wanderlei was taking this for real. And Chael was just playing the bad guy. He even tried to tell him before the show started, listen, I'm going I'm going to talk to you, and I want views, so I'm going to kind of play a persona a little bit, and that was pretty wild. That was really him attacking him, man. He shot in and tried to take him down. It's pretty wild.
And eventually, they did not fight at the end of the show.
Yeah,
of course, but they eventually got into the ring together in another fighting.
Bellator they fought. They
Yeah,
fought in Bellator.
and it was not much of a fight. I
Yeah,
mean,
it wasn't real exciting. Chael got it, but I mean, it wasn't like a barn burner or anything. But not the most exciting thing.
266, good pay-per-view, bad pay-per-view, right where it needs to be.
Excellent, man. 2 thumbs up to that thing. Even just the top third of the card really blew it in the stratosphere. Diaz, and Lawler was better than some people thought it'd be, even though a lot of people had high hopes with Nick coming in there. The greatness of Shevchenko just continuing. I love watching her fight. And then the main event was something for the ages. UFC puts their fights on YouTube, long after the pay-per-view's over, like I think a few months. Sometimes they'll release it when one of those fighters has another fight. So one of these days when they put the full fight out there and you can watch it, check it out. It was great. And I guess I didn't cover, but as far as what's next for each fighter, we'll go ahead and go with the champ to give him props first. Volkanovski is going to fight the winner of Max Holloway versus Yair Rodriguez, which is going to happen in November. Like I said before, Max, he's lost to Volk twice. He's 0-2, but a lot of people, including myself, thought Max probably got that second one. I had him 3 rounds to 2. But no knock on Volk. I mean, the guy's amazing, and he did enough to win that fight. But whoever wins Max and Yair, that's who's going to fight him. Max is going to be a pretty heavy favorite in that after the way he looked against Calvin Kattar, which he looked amazing in that fight. Check that fight out sometime. But I want to see Max and Volk go at it another time, and that's kind of the rare example again of where somebody is down 0-2 and they still do a trilogy. I think everybody wants to see Max and Volk go at it again. But, nothing against Yair Rodriguez. That would just be a huge pay-per-view if Max could get his 3rd shot and maybe get his title back. As far as Brian Ortega, I think Calvin Kattar, that would be the next fight for him. Calvin's coming off a loss, and so is Ortega. Ortega's got to take a ton of time off, though, man. He's got to heal up. He's a warrior. He wasn't going to quit.
It's a 6 to 9 month off period for Ortega, I would think.
Take it easy, man. Heal up. And looking forward to him being back in there, though, because that guy's a champ. Props to him. These guys are so tough that sometimes the corner's got to step in and say, man, he can't go on. But at the same time, it was a title fight, and he wasn't going to quit. So props to him, man. It's one of the rare times that people actually might have gained notoriety in a defeat. They might have gained in popularity, by losing a fight. So he looked great. Even though he lost, and 3rd round came so close to getting that choke. Your heart just breaks for him. But it was an amazing fight. Fight of the night for sure.
UFC 267 before we get off from here. 2 very anticipated fights. 2 fights we've talked about on here. One, Jan Blachowicz, Glover Teixeira.
Yeah.
And the rematch of Jan and Sterling. This has the makings of a very good pay-per-view in itself.
Yeah, and speaking of Jan and Sterling, it just broke. Sterling is out of that fight, so it's actually going to be Corey Sandhagen against future Jan for the interim title, and that just went down a couple days ago. So that's pretty fresh news on that one.
Yeah, it's still not updated on the UFC app.
Yeah, they may not have updated yet, but
that's a little weird, man, because the way Sterling won that title, now that rematch, if Jan comes in the interim champion, becomes even more intriguing.
Oh, yeah. And, I was kind of disappointed because I wanted to see Sterling and him get back into it. I felt bad for Pewter because he was definitely winning that fight, but at the same time, the rules are the rules. You can't just, can't knee a down opponent in the face. And Sterling, for his sake, you want to win the title, and, you don't want to win it via disqualification. A title win's a title win, but I'm sure, he'd rather got it via decision, knockout, what have you. But
there's that forever moment where he just throws the title belt down and walks away from it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So I don't know, but Corey Sandahagen's a beast. That guy had an amazing flying knee knockout of Frankie Edgar. So that fight, last time I checked, that was going to be the replacement fight. They may not have updated on UFC yet, but unless there's any contract disputes, that's what should be happening. But stuff changes day to day, man. Who knows? Just like the real world, everything changes from week to week. So stay tuned to see what happens with that.
I think Glover is 71 next month.
Oh man, he's one of the toughest old dudes on the planet. He is up there.
He is in his 40s. He's been around, and we're talking about a guy that I watched fight in some of those original UFC fights, some of the Randy Couture, Iceman fights. This guy's been fighting for 20 plus years in the octagon.
Yeah, he's been around, and Juan Blachowicz is obviously going to be a huge favorite in it, but I'm looking forward to watching it no matter what, man. I think it's going to be good, and we'll see what happens. You never know. That's why MMA is so unpredictable. I mean, Juan's going to be a big favorite, but you just never know, man.
Man, it's nice to get back on here. It seems like it's been forever.
Yeah, it's been a minute. It's been good.
Anything else you want to bring us about 266?
It was just amazing night, dude. Well worth watching, and I encourage you to check the replay out one of these days. ESPN Plus, they upload the replays, I think like a month after they happen. So give it a watch whenever you get a chance, and we'll see what happens and how things sort out. But great main event. Absolutely. Hats off to both guys.
And we'll be back on a permanent basis now. I'm sorry, everybody. We kind of got off track, off center, but we're back.
Yeah. A lot of life gets in the way sometimes.
Yeah, maybe we'll even get a Tennessee game in the next little bit. So that would be huge.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, that was good. I appreciate it.
All right, Andrew. I'll talk to you before 267.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back to the podcasting world.
Thank you. Good to be back, dude.
Everybody check in with us next month. We'll have coverage, wall-to-wall coverage of UFC 267. And it's first show ever on River City Media was a UFC preview, and it's here to stay. So for everybody, good night. God bless, and we'll see you down the road.
Cool.